abduction stories. Yes, you got your classic hillbilly getting kidnapped, and then with the classic anal probe. But there's that. Calm yourself out, Andre. But then you've got examples of fairy lore. You don't go into a fairy ring because you could get abducted by fairies. So fairy lore, which is people still believe in fairies now, but it's an older concept. Prior to what Roswell and the idea of flying saucers, the story is actually very similar. People are taken away. There's a time distortion. They come back and they've perceived beings. So one person's fairy, one person's goblin, one person's supernatural character. Yeah, Baba Yaga, or you name it.
Well.
Some abduction of a supernatural nature is someone else's sci-fi grey interaction.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, because I'm just thinking, you hear all these experiences. For example, I think it's Terence McKenna, when he has his DMT trip, he talks about all the visions he sees in terms of elves and such and everything. In that sense, if you think about it, that inner vision you get, that some people will say is a hallucination, some say it's something, but that's very interesting, because that's the inner psychic working of seeing what sort of creatures that person sees. So it's really, I find it fascinating, because I see it as an inner trip rather than an outer trip.
First of all, I just want to say, in the context of alien abductions, whether it is aliens, whether it's fairies, whether whatever it is, I've heard people say that surely by now they've stuck enough probes up enough people's butts that they've figured out whatever they need to figure out. I've got a new theory. My theory is that we're actually a theme park. We're a zoo, and that the anal probing is just some little kid just performing an activity that's part of the zoo, and that's why it always keeps on happening. So,
You never know. Yeah, it's the one he's playing himself.
But I mean, that kind of brings to the point that I think Spera is coming to, is that aliens, whether it's been explicitly said as aliens, they could have been here for many, many millennia, and they in different formats, whether it's in the form of an angel or fairies or whatever. I think that there's enough evidence to suggest that something unusual has happened. For example, the pyramids. I think the pyramids are an excellent example of future tech that was beyond a civilization at the time. How did they build the pyramids? No one can fully explain it. How does Stonehenge happen potentially? Was that potentially a site of alien activity? I mean, crop circles are the most common example. These are phenomena that don't have complete rational explanations, and there's got to be enough evidence to at least ask the question.
The theory called the extraterrestrial hypothesis, and that in that hypothesis, it becomes an expansion of that. It's not just aliens, as in your flying saucers, Martians, stuff like that. It's basically a bigger ecosystem where you've got creatures which have potentially been here from dawn of humanity, which potentially have molded us. If you look at the way humans have evolved, we've got mass blowing out of life, Precambrian, explosion of life, sort of small single cell organisms and microbes and things like that, and then basically we get dinosaurs and so on and so on, and they were around for millions and millions of years, and all of a sudden here comes tiny little monkey-like creatures, and from these monkey-like creatures we've gone to us. We're approaching the singularity. We're looking at space. We're communicating with all the tech that we've got in front of us. So we've gone from dinosaurs and really primitive creatures to humans. Potentially something's come in and said, hey, let's give this little monkey a bit of a kick up the butt. And all of a sudden a bit of an injection of intelligence, an improvement of their genetics. Something's expanded our brains, potentially, that can make us as intelligent as we are. Because we are, as much as we're stupid, because we do stupid things all the time, humans are extraordinary. When my cat can hook up Windows 10 and actually connect the internet like I have to do every day when this thing dies, then I'll be impressed. But it can't. I have to do it.
Yeah. Can I ask, do you think that intelligence is coming from outside and inserting, or is it coming from inside and outside?
Okay, that's interesting. The Eastern philosophies that I sort of entertain in my head would suggest that it's an internal discovery. Mm-hmm. So it could be it's coming from the inside of man, the inside of humans. We've looked in towards ourselves and discovered things. simultaneously, from a Western point of view, and being almost Platonic in my views, there's a transcendent thing above us, and ideas trickle down to us.
Hmm.
So,
See, because I like entertaining both those ideas, because both those ideas for me, I'll switch back and forth, because I like to think that the intelligence is within, but sometimes I like to think the intelligence is outside, because the form itself likes to play that game itself. So
yeah,
if you think about it, the intelligence itself, it can be an alien and comes in and comes to you, or it could be something you going in and doing outside. But both ideas, if you can have it in your mind that this can happen, it's a play in form, it's a beautiful game.
well, it's also just a metaphor because we don't know exactly how it works. So whether you take a transcendental view or an internal sort of view of yourself or your soul, again, it will never properly explain what goes on in humans, and we never will entirely understand what's going on. So it's like choose a paradigm, work it for as much as you want, and then skip and change something else. Like it doesn't really matter.
Exactly, because sometimes you need to be thinking in that format where you're wanting to change the outside to make sure that the inside is working. So it's a play in forms in that sense.
So one of the ideas about this, the technology has literally exploded in the last 100 odd years. You know, the changes that we've seen with the internet, with as you mentioned, Spirit, we're getting closer and closer to the singularity. You know, AI being able to essentially create consciousness, which is insane. There's a theory that the speed of this has come about because of Roswell and what we've learned from the alien tech that we discovered when that plane or whatever that thing was crashed in New Mexico. And there are other examples of alien recoveries, and I actually think that that's a very strong possibility. That whether it's because whoever the new aliens are, I have this theory that if the previous aliens were much smarter than the current aliens that are visiting us. So the previous aliens probably did end up destroying themselves with whatever, and they're gone now. And then new aliens are these dumb idiots that don't know how to drive, and they crash all the time, and we're discovering them more and more. So with incidents like Roswell, we find an alien ship, start retrospectively get the tech out of it, and bang, suddenly we have television, suddenly we have Wi-Fi, suddenly we have all this different tech. So what do you guys think of the idea that we're actually, we're not as smart as we think we are, we're actually just hacking
Reusing the tech.
Yeah.
I would think that's a big possibility. There's multiple current records of recoveries. Roswell's probably the most famous one. When I think it was in the late 70s in the US, they had a Freedom of Information Act, and they could basically declassify a whole bunch of stuff, and whole things leaked out. And then I think Reagan sort of tied it back up again and made it really quiet. But for the things that did get out, yeah, like the reports are multiple occurrences of sightings and interactions with perceived UFOs and recovery of tech. They're not going to tell us exactly what they've done. There's a national security risk, so we're only speculating. But reality is, they probably have. And I think Ian's got a real good point where you got potentially we're encountering extraterrestrials who are just a fraction bit more advanced than us, but their ancestors potentially are similar to ours. They are far more advanced. Again, let's bring it back to more of a spiritual sense. If you look at looking at it in biblical terms, God is plural in the Bible. Okay, it's gods, and they're coming down and they're doing stuff. So if we just change the whole God thing and make them aliens, we've got these super aliens coming here, building universe, building us, supporting us, creating us. They could easily be doing that, terraforming other planets, making other species out there, and then they don't have to die out. They potentially have to step back, and they are watching their zoo. And looking at us and thinking, okay, let's see what these monkeys on Earth do, and let's see what these, grey monkeys on this other planet do.
I mean, that makes total sense in the idea of they're an advanced species. There's most likely discovered a way to sustain their own lives for potentially being to live forever. So time means nothing to them. So they could sit back and watch us for a million years knowing that, they're never going to die anyway, so they could just sit and watch and observe. And so for us, the idea would be crazy, like sit back and experiment, but the experiment would need to be quick and so we can learn something out of it. But anything's possible. I mean, maybe that's why, these ships or whatever they are hitting us now, because this is actually part of the experiment that the aliens are seeing how life evolves. They're just going, all right, let's see what happens if we just chuck this ship this way. Let's see what happens if we anal probe this hillbilly and see, how everyone's going to react.
Counter argument to this: what if the intelligent life has gotten so intelligent they don't come anymore, but they've invented commercial use for these spaceships? So these are just pretty much like cars driving down the street for them, and they've gone the wrong way. I mean, we've got idiots on the road. So, I mean, like if that person crashes their car in another country, it doesn't mean they understand all the technology inside that car. It's possible this species has gotten so advanced, they're intelligent, they don't need to monitor us as much anymore. So they're not necessarily coming down themselves, but I guess the idiots of their species are driving cars and going off track and knocking into our planet.
Okay, let's just tie it back to human experience. We all have bad days. So aliens have bad days too. They were following their sat nav, and it just went, turn right, oh crap.
I'll tell you what, it's a real bad day, man. If you end up in Roswell, New Mexico.
When Apple Maps first came out, we had tourists in Australia that tried to drive into the ocean because the map told them there was an island they could drive onto.
Well, what I'm thinking?
Is this a spatial version of that?
Yes, why not?
What I'm thinking is, the whole idea you're saying, the technology is already there, right? Imagine the technology is fully developed and everything, and now the idea is just about playing around with it until we reach that same point again. Like the whole technology has evolved to that point. Like you were saying, the concept of time is gone out the door, and the technology, and they're just now experimenting itself.
I feel like if they're at that point, they've mastered time, they've mastered space. There's a reason why we can't travel to Mars, but they could potentially be traveling across galaxies. It's because they know, right? We have to make the assumption that if they can reach us, and they've reached us for a long time, that their tech is good enough to break the laws of physics, essentially, and do things, or they know something that we don't know, like that wormholes actually travel through dimensions, and if you take a shortcut through this wormhole, you end up in this other galaxy.
Yeah. Physics just a human concept anyway.
Well, this is
how
the
we
thing.
perceive it.
Yeah. I want to bring in a controversial topic here. I want to tie back this to reincarnation. How would that work?
Okay. What do you mean?
So how you're saying the space-time continuum, the way the movement of going through the space and time and the reincarnation.
So do aliens reincarnate into humans, or do we?
Well, different sort of life cycle.
I'm not entirely convinced on reincarnation, but if reincarnation was a possibility, then it comes down to the idea then life or the soul is something independent and tangible, or has some level of substance. Then there's no reason why it can't travel through space and time. It seems like it has to, because it has to. You may die, your soul gets placed into some other body, so therefore there's a displacement there. So you are traveling through space and time, and you're just you're just reincarnating into another human or a worm somewhere on Earth. Equally, if we're talking about soul travel, then like if you are a really advanced species out there in the universe, why travel physically when you can send your soul over?
The whole concept of the technology has evolved that much, and it's plating self. That's fascinating. I just find that very fascinating.
Maybe that's where the idea of possession comes into play, and something that I think that I'd like your view on, Spiro. I mean, you're quite into the spirit world. What if you're actually misunderstanding spirits? Maybe they're actually the aliens. Maybe when we look into behind the curtain and into this other dimension, we're not looking at ghosts of the past. We're actually looking at aliens of the present.
That actually does cross my mind a lot. When I'm working with, say, angels, and or when I've seen a ghost, it's like, what actually am I looking at? Angels, with my understanding, my experience, are not human in any way. They really are quite different. They almost don't really even understand what it is to be. They don't understand what it is to be human. They don't get us. They see us in a